find such a love at our age. Whoever thought we could dance on a thrilling...
Welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words. I'm your co-host, Judy Alexander, and I'm here with my husband, Dr. Bruce Chalmer.
Hello, Judy. Hello, viewers and listeners. Judy, what is today's topic?
It's not about the dishwasher, an interview with Talia Bombola.
Yes, we had a lot of fun with that, especially that topic about the dishwasher. She's her approach is very much psychodynamic. Mm-hmm. And if you want to learn about, I really enjoyed how she talked about it.
Yeah.
And we don't agree on those approaches, which I really find is useful. That's I always love to hear from folks who are, I came out of that. Well, we talk about it. You'll hear we talk about it in the interview, and she's really very. I just found her way of talking about it all really engaging, and I just enjoyed it. So I hope you will all enjoy that as well. Yeah. Before we get there, let's put in a plug for our books. And hey, folks, buy our books. Anything else you got to say about that?
Well, I don't know if people are in Vermont, but I'm going to be doing a book signing at our local Barnes & Noble in South Burlington on September 14th. So hopefully, if you're listening, I will say that. So hopefully, if you're listening to this before September 14th, 2025, please come out to Barnes & Noble.
And, gee, what book will you be signing?
Oh, that would be The Blue Tent, Erotic Tales from the Bible by Laria Zilber, by Nom de Plume.
Yes, indeed. And if you like erotica, this is really good erotica. And if you're interested, if you like erotica and you like Bible stories from a sophisticated perspective. I'm not talking about little kid Bible stories. It's the same Bible stories. Yeah. But these are Bible stories with the stuff they don't tell little kids thrown in. Mm-hmm. And then you expanded upon it in some very, very sexy ways.
Yes.
And so it's a lovely book.
And if you're not familiar with erotica, this is a nice intro to it because it's, not like kinky or...
No, it's very explicit, though. I don't want to mislead anybody.
It's explicit, but...
Yes, but it's true. It is not
I know some people who avoid it because they don't like all the BDSM stuff. And
it doesn't have that.
So it doesn't have that.
Yes, indeed. And buy my books, too. And you'll find my books on Amazon and anywhere else books are sold. I have a book that I'm working on. I've been mentioning. Again, I'm still not ready to give the title yet because it's not 100% clear, although the cover's been designed, so it's pretty clear.
Okay.
But in any case, I am working on that. And as part of that, I created a little assessment tool called the Stability and Intimacy Assessment. And if you want to try that out, go to my website, brucechalmer.com, and you will see a link that takes you there. And you won't, I won't get your name. It doesn't collect any identifying information. But it'll be an exercise that I think you will find useful. And what I hope you will do is, well, since it's a beta test version, it actually has some questions asking you about your experience. So I hope you'll respond to those. And if you want to email me and tell me anything else about it, of course, I'll know who's emailing me, but I won't know your answers unless you want to tell me. That will be really helpful as well. And pretty soon, I'm going to be looking for readers of my new book.
Yes.
And we'll get to that when it's closer to ready. So let's get on with our interview, and we'll see you on the other side.
Our guest today is Talia Bombola. Talia is a licensed psychotherapist and the founder of the Newport Counseling Center for Individual, Couples, and Family Therapy in Newport Beach, California. She holds a master's degree in clinical psychology with an emphasis in marriage and family therapy and is a certified psychodynamic psychotherapist. In her work with clients, Talia integrates attachment theory, interpersonal neurobiology, and depth psychology into her therapeutic approach. Beyond her clinical work, Talia is the host of the podcast Heal Through Humor and the co-host of the podcast Between Two Clinicians. Talia, welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words.
Thank you both for having me. I'm very much so looking forward to this episode, and thank you for a great intro.
We are delighted to have you. Well, we always like to start off by asking our guests, how did you get into the work you do? Tell us something about your own journey.
So I first became acquainted with therapy when I was 12, so many, many decades ago. And it was so transformational to have someone to listen to me and to really open up to at least an hour, but let's be real, mostly 2 hours a week. I would see her twice. And I realized as I was further in my own experience as a client that this is such a cool career to be able to help people with their deepest shame, with their most concerning parts of their life that they feel like they don't have anyone else to talk to about it. And especially being a teenager, it's not that I couldn't go to my parents, but I'm sure everyone remembers being a teenager. It's not that they were on like the top of the list to go to. So it was incredible to have an outside source who I could tell really did have my best objective interest at heart and helped guide me. And as the years went on, I knew I wanted to be in the helping profession. And after I finished my bachelor's degree, I was deciding what I wanted to do for grad school, and a lot of the other career paths required even more testing, even more school. And to be honest, I was quite burnt out. So I thought to myself, what can I do that involves helping people that I'm already very qualified to do because I have a background in it and that I believe I could start sooner than later because I was really eager to start my professional life young, and therapy ended up being the path that I chose, and I've loved it ever since. I've done it over 10 years now since grad school. And I would say with couples, what got me interested in working with them, because if you talk to other therapists, there are some that are like, I won't ever work with couples. How do you do it?
Right.
Yep.
That is so intense. And for me, I'm like, no, I love it. Like I love, and I'm gonna say the drama in a colloquial way. I love the intensity that some couples bring because I know underneath is a deep desire to connect, and how they're going about connecting in the way that they start therapy is usually yelling, screaming, conflict, silent treatment. All of those are attempts at trying to connect or to teach the partner something when in reality it comes from our own upbringing and our own mostly faulty communication lessons that we learned of how to get people to do what we want or how relationships function. And also from media, we can see that as well. I'll have some couples come in now more so than ever. I saw this on TikTok. I saw this on
Mhm.
Instagram. And so I love the work that I do now to debunk a lot of what clients see, that it's not what that is behind the scenes. It's much deeper than that, and true intimacy, true eye-to-eye relationships are quite confronting, and they require a lot of vulnerability, which a lot of us are not prepared to have. And I think, again, full
Mm.
circle therapy sets the tone for a very vulnerable relationship that won't be used against you. And that's the template that a lot of couples can work from.
Well, you have touched on some of my favorite themes there, I have to tell you.
Yeah, Bruce is he's the couples therapist. I'm not
Perfect.
a therapist.
Well, yeah, educator, retired
Yes,
educator.
educator.
We'll sometimes say I'm the therapist and Judy's the real person, but
A
well,
good
we're both
blend.
real people in our own way.
I'm the one who has to translate
Yes,
psychodynamic.
the
Yeah,
jargon.
well, and
Yes.
that's actually where what I was going to go with actually, because we each have our own path into getting this work. I was really, when you talked about loving working with couples, I so relate to that, and I get, I get interviewed on a lot of these podcasts as well because I've written some books, and they'll often say, wow, couples, you're working with couples, and it's a lot about that sense of intensity. There's
Mhm.
something so real about it and
Mhm.
so important about it. Not that helping individuals isn't important, it is, but there's something about working with couples that it just feels like, wow, it's really having an important effect on the world. That's a good thing to do. So, we each have our own paths here. I am curious how especially you got on kind of went down the psychodynamic route, and we will indeed want to translate for the lay folks, and you know more about it than you let on, but nevertheless.
Well, I've been doing this for 5 years.
Yeah.
There's some understanding, but I know there are people out there that don't.
Yeah.
So I
So we
like
can
to keep
explain
be
that.
mindful of
And I
that.
will tell you, even, just my earliest training on the clinical side was in fact psychodynamic.
Oh,
I learned a lot from it, got away from it for various reasons, but I am really curious, like what has grabbed you about that and continues to grab you about that.
So that first therapist that I ever saw was trained in psychodynamic therapy, and she actually went to the same institute that I ended up going to all those years later. So in many ways, she created a real life fantasy. I know that sounds probably oxymoronic, but she was really practicing from a lens that I didn't have the experience when my other friends would talk about being in therapy. It just seemed like their therapist was giving them a bunch of skills or was overly empathetic or the classic, oh, well, how does that make you feel? And how does
Yes.
that make you feel? And
We're,
just say,
we're laughing, by the way, because
yes,
I so often say to Judy, I
yes.
never say that. Yeah, we'll see that on TV or something. There's some, and I say, I don't say
And
that.
every time
Yeah,
they go to a therapist's office on TV or in a movies, how does that make you feel? It's like,
yeah.
oh God.
And
It's
I
like,
can't tell you how many clients were like, I wish they would have just asked that. Like, I don't know why we avoided feelings for some of it. So I
Mm,
had that first experience receiving more psychodynamic therapy and understanding how your infancy, early childhood, and family patterns and familial patterns influence pretty much everything coming at it from the psychodynamic and analytic lens. And so I like to joke that my frontal lobe was developed on it. So I was already wise beyond my years for other reasons. And then that really did solidify having such a deep understanding of how people thought, how people function, and why. And I think for a lot of clients, the why piece is missing. They know what they're doing, they know it's not leading to the outcome that they prefer, or they do know it's leading to it, but that blueprint piece, why am I the way that I am? Why do I think the way that I think? Why do I feel what I feel? Why do I date the people that I date? Why am I stuck in this relationship that isn't happy? Why do I want kids? Why don't I want kids? A lot of
mm,
those why, almost every one of them, in my view, can be answered from coming at it from a more psychodynamic and psychoanalytic lens. So once I finished grad school, which my grad program covered quite a bit, but only in small doses. So if you wanted to learn more about a specific topic, you had to take it upon yourself to take external trainings, which
mm,
I did on many different topics. And then after I finished grad school, I love school. I am a nerd. I'm obsessed. And I felt very unmoored when I graduated. And I was like, I need to go back to school, but I don't want to finish my PhD or PsyD at the time. So what I did was go to the Newport Psychoanalytic Institute and I took almost all of their trainings and I was in their PsyD track, but they took away the option to get the PsyD. So it would have been like 5 years for a certificate. And I honestly didn't have the energy in me to do another 3, 4 years without something to show at the end
mm,
of it. And then that kind of that distinction. And so I ended up taking, again, all the other educational classes towards it. And I took the certified psychodynamic track, infant, child, and adolescent psychoanalytic psychotherapy, couples psychoanalytic psychotherapy, and there was one other one that was like a combo course. So the passion that I have for those deep underpinnings and how childhood impacts your adulthood, I became even more obsessed when I had an entire track on that. And I always joked, I didn't even know if I could have kids, but I joked, if I would, I have to take this course, this infant, child, and adolescent year, just to make sure I don't mess them up any more than I already might. And then if I do know that I'll have like referrals for where to send them
well,
as they get
you will.
older.
So
Yes. So I was like,
Do you
that's
know?
a foregone conclusion. Yeah.
You know the Philip Larkin poem, This Be the Verse? I
Yes.
quote it. Yes, I almost always, not almost always, many,
Yeah.
many times in
Yeah.
a given month, I'm probably quoting that poem 5 or 6 times in a given month because I love it. And for the benefit of our listeners who haven't heard it, if I may, I will, it's short.
hey,
I will recite
you
it.
can say it.
Yes, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They give you all the things they had, but add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old style hats and coats who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man, it passes like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself. Love that poem. And don't get me wrong, because we have kids. I mean, we're a second marriage. But
Yes.
we each have kids
Yes.
and grandkids, and we love them all. And we're delighted we had kids and grandkids. But I still love that poem because it is really recognizing. See, that's the thing. And I'm curious to ask you about this.
Sure.
So I mentioned my earliest training was in psychodynamic, and I really learned a great deal from it. I do remember the day, and you can feel free to psychoanalyze me on this if it, this will reveal something deep about my own, my own internal conflicts, no doubt. I remember the day when I said, okay, I think I need to branch off into different areas here. It was in a consultation or a supervision group meeting. Wonderful supervisor, saying nothing bad about my supervisor. He was a great guy and a very, very smart guy too. And anyway, so we're sitting around. There's, I don't know, 5, 6 of us interns and our supervisor. And one of the other interns was presenting a case he was working with. He was talking about this man. Not everybody in there was male, but anyway, my story is all about guys. So he was talking about this man that he saw, He'd only seen him 3 or 4 times, and he came in the day before we were talking about it and said, "Wow." He came in and said, it's amazing how much better my relationships are now. I'm getting better along better with my wife, getting along better with my coworkers. This really seems to be helping." And then the student said, "Obviously, it's a flight to health." And so
Mm.
I know what that means. And for the benefit of for the benefit of the folks who are hearing this, the concept, it has to do with resistance. It has to do with the idea that rather than actually face the ways he really must be fucked up,
Mhm.
to quote Philip Larson, or Larkin, I should
Larkin.
say, rather than face those ways, he was actually just saying, well, I better not face those internal conflicts. I better actually act better. And it
Mm.
couldn't be real. And now, why couldn't it be real? So little nerd that I was, I'm
Yeah.
still well, not so much nerd. I'm still a nerd, but twerp. There's the word, twerp that I was, and I'm still kind of twerpy. You can testify to that. And I said, how do you know the difference between actually getting better and a flight to health? And, you know, nice folks, but they looked at me like, oh, there he goes again, and I realized there is a pitfall in having an understanding that is so well developed as psychoanalysis and psychodynamic theory is, because it can make you think that you have all the answers, as opposed to, well, because flight to health is a useful concept. I'm not saying it's empty. I'm just saying, but you're making it so that they can't actually get better. What if you actually got better? Anyway, please comment. Please tear my
Yeah.
argument to shreds.
No, no, no. I agree that, and this is what I have a bone to pick, I guess I could phrase it as, with a lot of the alphabet therapies like DBT, CBT, etc.,
Yep.
that if they're behaviorally based, and before I go down that path, I do enjoy being eclectic and pulling from other modalities for certain
Mhm.
skills. With that said, if we're not addressing the core root as to why you have any of these symptoms that you need to use any of the alphabet therapies to treat, it's really just a short-term solution. And I'm putting that in quotes because it is not an actual solution. To truly heal at the core requires a undoing of the life that you currently know and a restructuring of the life that you want to get towards. And it's not to say that using certain skills can't help assist in achieving that ultimate goal. But if I'm fighting with my relationship partner all the time. Truly, there's couples that come in and it's unending. It feels like any day there's a conflict. They maybe get one good day out of 6 days. And the classic report, it never used to be like this. It was this until a certain point in the relationship where the love wears off and it turns into more companionate love. You don't view them as that projected partner anymore, and the facade falls away. And you're faced with, in imago therapy, that concept that we all marry our parents in some way, shape,
Mm.
or form, and we all try to marry the unfinished business from our childhood. So now every argument I might be having, I'm not actually fighting with my partner some of the time. Sure, I might be in the concept, but I'm deep down standing up to my dad in a way that I never could when I was growing up, or I'm finally telling my mom off in a way that I wasn't allowed to as a teenage boy, whoever, the person is reporting it. So if we're not treating that at the core, you can teach me all the Gottman or whatever other skills you'd like of how to have a soft startup and everything else, but that's kind of a red herring. The core of it is I can't be in this true intimate partnership with you because we might not actually be a good fit. Our inner children might be soulmates more than our adult selves. Did I pick you consciously or unconsciously? And that's a large part of the psychoanalytic couples therapy that I love to practice from, is helping couples understand this is where this stems from for you. I could give you a skill. I could teach you how not to yell. I can give you a sentence
Mm.
structure to explain what's going on for you. But if you're not understanding why did you pick somebody who triggers you the exact way your dad did in the first place, if you stay with this person, it may not be the healthiest that it could be because you're just going to be symptom managing the whole way. And if you break up with them and date somebody else, if you haven't treated the core of this, you're just going to find them in a different name. It's like
Mm.
brand loyalty. Same generic ingredients, but the title's different. So
I
you
like
have
that concept, brand loyalty.
yeah, you have to go with the right different same word, different font, as it's also called. You really, not just you, obviously I'm not speaking to the two of you, but the person listening to this, the listener can truly benefit from examining at the core and analyzing, why am I the way that I am? Where did this stem from? And with that knowledge, oftentimes conflict can stop in its tracks because the person can do enough work and go, and I was like that with my ex too. It would get to the point before we split that I was like, this isn't even about this. And then there came a certain point where I'm like, no, this is 100% a core problem of being in an unhealthy relationship. I did the imago work and everything else, but as we further went into the relationship, it revealed itself to be less and less of a fit. But there was
Mm.
that lesson from our upbringings of you don't get divorced, you stay together for the kid. A lot of those were acting upon, those forces were acting upon until I was like, no, I'm at the point where I still think kids could come from a broken home even if parents are married. And that was not a good point
Mhm.
to be at. And making the conscious choice, I need to wake up from this. And if I found myself saying, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life on a daily basis with a baby, I made that true that I wasn't going to do that every day for the rest of my life. So there's also something to be said for learning from our past in a way that isn't what the movies show, drama and dragging out and all of that.
Mm.
Yes, it can be very painful to have these realizations and to go treat it at the core, but it doesn't mean it needs to be an undoing. It's the story we tell ourselves about the decisions we make that also makes a big difference. If you realize I'm not a fit with this person and you decide to leave, then the actions after that also have to be healing why it started in the first place and moving on in a healthy way so you don't just end up, like we joked, dating the same person over and over with a different name.
Yeah, it's interesting that the book I'm working on right now, um, the section I just happened to be in is I just finished the section called, how do you know when to call it quits, basically,
Yeah.
and it has a lot to do with that recognition that the my basic piece of advice actually, and I really do shy away from advice, like many therapists. Well, it's like many therapists don't actually, do they? But whatever. I'll shy away from advice a fair amount because the one thing I know is I don't know better than my clients how they should live their
Yes, we
lives.
will. Yeah.
I simply don't. They're going to have to figure that out. I'm asking them good questions and helping them get to places like that. But the one thing I really resonated to in what you were talking about is the idea that if you're not dealing with something that is a clear, obvious, logical deal breaker,
Mhm.
which, and that's not necessarily just about pain.
Mhm.
It isn't even necessarily, you can have very painful things you can recover from.
True.
It's more about things like, well, one person wants to have a child and the other doesn't, and they're not changing their minds. That's just not going to work, so that's a
Correct.
deal breaker. But
Yes.
if it's not that, it's growing pains. And the basic guideline I offer is it kind of fits with what you're saying in a sense. It's like, don't break up too soon
Correct.
before you learn what you need to learn.
Yes.
Because if you don't learn what you need to learn, it's exactly as you're saying. Now, where I depart from the way you were describing it is in the idea that we can know necessarily what the explanation is. I
Mm,
think there's lots of possible ways of understanding that and lots
true.
of different ways of looking at it. And some of them are culturally based and some of them are individually based. And so there's a lot of ways of parsing that possibility that can
Yes.
lead someone to say, oh, wow, now I know what to do.
Hmm.
But it's interesting because, as I say, I learned a lot from the psychodynamic approach, and it has a lot to offer. And things like you mentioned Imago along the
Yes.
way, and shout out to Harville Hendricks for our listeners.
Yes.
That and that is very much based in psychodynamic, right? That's where
Mhm.
that comes from.
Mhm.
Anyway, dude,
We want to explain what imago is?
I think you can do that better than I can because you know more about it. I associated with Harville Hendricks. I read,
Yes.
Getting the Love You Want probably 35 years ago or whenever it came out. But yeah, what's Imago? How would you explain that?
So, imago therapy is a style of therapy for couples in which the main concept, and I'm not Harville Hendrix, so I will do my best to summarize, that we basically the way that the workup goes that the client fills out, and I used to give this to my students as well. And then the first half of the page, they're like, I've got this. And then the second half of the page, abject terror. They're like, what? And then there's this look of disgust and then this realization and then like, oh my God, is this why I am the way? So I loved it. That was my favorite day as a professor because you just get to watch the story arc. And it was community college, so also the age range of people was very wide. So I got a great sample size. So
Mm.
the concept is that you are seeking someone and attracted to someone who has the positive traits of your primary caregivers growing up. That could be mom, dad, and a figure like a grandparent that was involved. So we're going to generalize to primary caregivers, stereotypically mom and dad. but you won't really fall in love with them unless they also have the core negative traits of those primary caregivers, so that you can finally get what you were longing for in childhood, but you stop yourself from getting the love you want by in adulthood responding to frustration the same way you did as a child. So the kind of the layout goes when people are filling it out, they're like, "Oh, I want someone who's funny and smart and likes to travel, but I won't really fall in love unless they're hypercritical, comment on everything that I do is wrong, and pick another negative trait of your parents, so that I can finally feel seen, accepted, validated. Like, what did you long for in childhood is one of the questions. And I tell the clients, it's not a pony. Like, I'm not looking for material answers. I'm looking for someone to care, someone to be there for me when I got home from school and ask about my day, like those kinds of wants and desires. And then how did you respond to your childhood frustrations? Did you storm off? Did you slam the door? Did you withdraw? Did you scream? Like how did you respond? And then on the flip side again of the page, they write it all out. So your imago exemplifies both the positive aspect, right? The anima, animus, light, shadow, whichever modality you're coming at it from. It's I'm not going to really fall in love unless this person reminds me in all ways of that familiarity of childhood. And the positive aspect of this is that you can overcome this in the reading the Getting the Love You Want and a lot of
Yeah.
the other Imago style books, and going to that kind of therapy, because they'll sometimes do body doubles where there's couples therapists who are a team that give voice to both of the couples. So it's like two on two essentially in the sessions, and they'll speak and then they'll say what they were really meaning. And there's another great book analytically called You're Not What I Expected, Love After the Romance Has Ended by Polly Young Eisendrath. And she talks about a similar concept of this strange lover, all of these disowned parts of ourselves that we don't have access to, that we project in and introject into the other partner, and they embody it. But then when they do something that's like, but perfect version of me would never do that. Why are you doing that? We have to come
Mm.
to terms with I call it the real relationship in front of us. And oftentimes people are so caught up in the fantasy or the imago, the image of what they want their partner to be, when the partner shows their real self, then the person who's hoping they're different has a really hard time coming to terms. And that's where the concept of, again, stereotypic men marry women hoping they never change and women marry men hoping they do kind of stems from. So I want you to change, right? Because of this perfect, and women compare man to a hairy woman, which you're not, just that's not how hormones work either. And we hold you to that standard. So when you fall short, it's not actually you, it's you fell short of the perfect version that I could also never be. So it brings up all these insecurities. So that's where I borrow
Yep.
from evolutionary psychology also when I'm helping couples
That's,
understand.
I do that a lot too, actually. I'll often note the bit about, wow, it seems like some women are looking for a girlfriend with a penis. So
Totally.
it's a similar, yeah, but
Yeah.
yours is
This
something more, yeah.
explains so much about my first marriage.
Do you know how much more successful I would be if I had a wife rather than I was a wife? Like, are you kidding?
Mhm.
Yeah. So we do want that because we understand and see the world in a way, estrogen and progesterone. It's not that only one has the other, we all
Yeah.
have these, but estrogen and progesterone make us see the world in a different way, especially at different points in our cycle. And if we're on birth control, there's whole other studies supporting that we see the world more masculinely. So we'll pick different partners at different points of our cycle. We're attracted to different kind of traits. So there's
Mhm.
so much that goes into the evolutionary psychology and the biology of why we pick who we pick. Then I add in the psychology aspect of it, the evolved psyche. But a lot of our instinctual drive is because human beings are on Earth to procreate and further the species, whether we
Yep.
choose to or not, whether we've evolved, that's our core driver. We haven't had a software update in tens of thousands of years. So we're contending with an advanced psychological evolution with not a lot of like biological evolution. It's still pretty the base model. So
Yeah.
that tension can also cause problems in relationships. I'm expecting you to be me. I'm expecting you to read my mind is the other tenet that I learned in psychoanalysis. And that one stems from when was a time in our life where we had almost ideally, minus neglect, almost all of our needs met? Infancy,
Early babyhood.
right?
Infancy.
Yeah.
The only time that you get that omniscient, omnipotent knowing from another to you to decipher your every want and need is when your mom is trying to figure out what you need as a baby. that sets the template. If you got that growing up, if she attuned to your every need, you expect that understandably in adulthood, and your standard for I want a securely attached relationship is much higher. When you're in a different kind of dynamic growing up, you weren't attuned to, you did not develop the trust in others. You take that with you into adulthood, and some people are hell bent on, I didn't get it then, I'm sure as hell getting it now, and that just feeds the cycle. No one person can ever meet all of our needs. I can't even meet all of my own needs. How could I expect another entity who isn't my mother or biologically hardwired to keep me alive at all costs to meet my needs? So there needs to be an upgrade, not necessarily just the biology of it. As people in partnerships, we need to have an understanding that our partner's autonomy doesn't have to be a threat to our attachment to them, and we can still be attuned to one another and connected to one another even if they're a separate self, as long as they're still following the agreements of what we've agreed to, like it's just going to be you and I, we're not sleeping with anybody else, etc. We have kids together. Like you follow the deal like a business agreement, and then you have free reign. But partners, especially women, it's like, my precious, like I desire to possess you because of that nurturing quality that a lot of us have from our hormones when that gets appropriately placed in children, right? That the full enamorment that we usually project onto our partners before we have kids, then partners can feel dethroned. They're like, "Well, I miss being the first baby. What the hell? Like you have no attention left for me." And it's like,
That is a
"Sorry."
classic.
Right? Yeah. Evolution has
Yeah.
taken its course. Like I don't need you anymore. You gave me what I needed. Thank you.
So here's a question, and I'm guessing it's funny because we our listeners don't realize we had planned this a while ago, and then for one
Yeah.
reason or another, we ended
Yes.
up postponing it. But
Yes.
but I wrote this question quite a while ago, but I think I got it from your material somewhere, and
Yes.
it's a good question anyway, I think. When a couple's arguing about how to load the dishwasher,
Yes.
what's going on? And I've worked with couples where it's like that seems to get them close to the brink of divorce
Yeah.
sometimes. And I know I'll bet it's not really about the dishwasher. Even they think that. But I'm curious, what are your thoughts about that?
Yes, I've always had, so if any marketing people are listening to this, you cannot steal my idea because I'm working on how do I get this out there. I think Cascade would do a great collaboration, or any other dishwashing company, to set up a camera from the view of the dishwasher in a couple's home and have them load and fight it and argue, and it's this and it's that. And then you see the one sneak back in later and be like, oh, he didn't do it this way. And then it's like, whatever, Cascade, saving families from divorce. Like, I don't know, I haven't thought that part out yet, but I
That
really
is really good. That's
thank
good.
you,
Yeah.
right? Like I do think that there could be some kind of collab. So I'm waiting on that to fully flesh out. But the reason why couples have fights over the dishwasher, the laundry, whatever it is that it's like it's somewhat of a regular household task, I've boiled it down to one of at least three possible whys that it could be happening. One is if I've been the partner that always does it a certain way, or I was the
Yep.
assumed one to be carrying all of the load, and then this person is coming in trying to help, whether that's their
Mhm.
wording or what we're asking for, it feels confronting. This is kind of a twofold. It feels confronting because, oh, now you decide to do it. Why didn't you think to do it earlier without me having to ask? Is a piece of it. So it's not
Mhm.
necessarily the how to load it, it's that you're loading it. Now you decide to after all these years, so there's a resentment built up of why didn't you do it sooner? Or it took me having to give you an ultimatum for you to start doing it. So it's the concepts around the how and the timing of it that are tense. The other piece of it is if they are both taking the lead, two members of a couple who are typically leaders in their own way are going to naturally have conflict over something that they want done their way. So if you have a couple that they both have their way of doing it, that's going to be two strong personalities that can have conflict. The first one is usually, I'm going to do it my way, and the other one's like, yeah, cool, whatever. There's like one far more assertive
Mhm.
and one far more passive. But then when the passive person starts to be more assertive or have their own opinions, which can happen over time, the assertive one's like, that's not what I told you to do. What are you doing? So there's a conflict there. And then the third piece of it is that they really didn't have the understanding of the business side of marriage or partnership when they moved in
Mhm.
together, and to understand that no matter who you live with, you will have to handle each other in a sense like roommates. So,
Mhm.
how are you going to negotiate interpersonal conflict? And that's where the childhood piece comes up. And I give this example in other podcasts. My mom was notorious growing up for, it would be nice if somebody put the sponges in the dishwasher before we started it, whatever, and she would leave. And she'd get home, and the sponges were not in the dishwasher because she didn't ask for it directly. She just listed, it would be nice, to which I agreed,
Uh,
it would be nice. Well, didn't you think to read between the lines and understand that that was me asking? No, because you didn't ask. You just passively stated it would be nice, which is a lot of where fights come from is I think I'm being direct in what I'm requesting and wanting and needing.
yep.
And I'm expecting you to read between the lines like women do, because I could be like, oh my, and I actually do love this part of where is on your lapel, Judy. But if I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute, you know that that is not cute. But Bruce could be like, oh, she thinks it's cute. We know the tone and intonation read between the lines. So there's
Yeah,
this
yeah.
misunderstanding of what's being said and what's actually being meant. And that's where congruency avoids conflict and being okay and comfortable with being disliked, not hated, but disliked. Or maybe my partner looks at me and goes, wow, that was really direct. Yes, I value our relationship and I promise to be direct with you, even if it doesn't sound the nicest or most passive way. It's important. And I remember in my previous dynamic, the dishwasher example, actually, there was a way that I just like threw everything in there. I didn't pre-rinse, I didn't this, and we would get in fights about it. And the concept was, I don't want to do extra work. I would rather wash it after it's done than have to
Mm.
pre-wash it and save time because that led me on a whole, I didn't have time growing up and the right, there's always a story to it. And then the only thing I've kept from that partnership about the dishwasher that was actually efficient, which was my goal, is stacking all the forks in one of the little silverware things, stacking all the knives, all the spoons. So once the dishwasher,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
right,
you.
you just, and I didn't learn it that way because our dishwasher growing up had like a long place with a lot of
Yeah.
individual slots. We didn't have the basket. So
Mhm.
again, based on childhood, that was the pattern was you just threw it in wherever. His dishwasher growing up had the basket. So this, it's not just about the dishwasher. What are the patterns from childhood that we were taught? And like he was yelled at if he didn't do it the right way. So that was a huge thing of I have to load the dishwasher away because of a trauma response. So there's a piece of it too in the conflict. Do you have a trauma response around these things? Do you have a fear when you hear the garage door open because you need to tidy up everything around your house because your parents' mood set the emotional tone growing up and everybody had to be sitting there and perfect for one parent to come in? All of those things and more are why the dishwasher, the laundry, the whatever it is the way it is because it creates a felt sense of safety. Even if that's not actual safety, it could be a false sense of safety as well.
Mm.
So you're also saying that couples' expectations of each other have a huge
Oh
effect
my
on their relationships.
Everything, everything. If I ask when you two were first dating, if you're going on 3 dates and Judy, your expectation is, okay, after 3 dates, you're my boyfriend. And Bruce is like, okay, after 6 months, which by the way, time is irrelevant. 6 months, you're not with each other every minute of 6 months. You could go on 4 dates in a 6 month span, or you could go on 90 dates in a 6 month span. So what's the expectation around timing also needs to be operationally defined. What are my expectations? And then in therapy, why? My expectations also of partnership evolving at a certain rate are based on biology. If I can't turn a guy into a boyfriend by 9 months, not viable. If it's not in a fiance by 15 months, you're canceled, right? A lot of that comes from our hard wiring of how long it takes a baby to be born, how long it takes
Mhm.
this, even if you choose not to have kids. A lot of it is so deeply steeped as a subconscious expectation. And if you loved me, you would just know without me having to ask or say it is based on an infant mother relationship, not two adults in a romantic partnership.
It's interesting when we did get together 20 some years ago. I remember commenting at the time because in my first marriage, I was very young when I got married the first time, and so I was already in my early 50s when we got together. And I remember saying to you, I was every bit as much head over heels as I'd ever been, but I could talk about it.
Yeah, right.
There was an element of maturity. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, we could tolerate, this is my favorite phrase, as you know, we
There you
could
go.
tolerate the anxiety of intimacy
Yes,
because
yes,
intimacy inevitably involves anxiety.
yes,
And a lot of that anxiety is about that. The more important it becomes, the more you have really fallen for someone, the more important it becomes. And that sort of raises, to issue a complaint or to say something that you're fantasizing about or to say anything that you're a little worried about how they might respond, the stakes get higher and higher. And so to be able to tolerate that is what gets you past, I think, that's what gets you past, being governed by your imago
yes,
in those
yes,
terms.
exactly.
Is
And
that
able
it's
to
essentially
vocalize.
it's maturity. And of course, that takes some work. It's not
Yes.
just about age, that it's about work.
Yeah.
And I think it takes courage to be vocal and upfront, not in an inundating way. It's not to say on
Mhm.
your first date you have to come with this list of here's everything you need to know. That's not what I'm suggesting. However, if there are certain tenets of your life and core values that are quite important to you, lead with those. A lot of people conceal what they imagine might be the undoing of a potential relationship for the hopes to get into a relationship that once these things are revealed will eventually end because of. It just doesn't add
Mm.
up. So if you lead, right, tolerating the anxiety of intimacy, if I lead with what I imagine this person might be like, that's a deal breaker, logically, wouldn't I rather find that out after 1 or 2 dates when we're not
Oh,
actually
yeah.
committed than 5 years in with a dog and a kid on the way and I look at them and I go, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Right? Like if those things were indeed going to be deal breakers, why not let your freak flag fly early and the person who goes, works for me, no problem. That's a much better fit to see along the way rather than what would be a non-starter is, well, I just don't want them to know all these things about me. And part of that is, again, evolution because you want to not look so perfect that you're an outlier or be so damaged that you're an outlier in the opposite direction.
Yep.
It's understanding, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. And that comes with maturity, not just chronological age, as you were mentioning. That comes with maturity and the ability to look in the mirror and go, I like me and I love parts of myself and I've owned the parts I'm afraid that other people discover. So if anybody comes up to me and they're like, you've done this or you've done that, okay, thank you for letting me know. I take ownership of this, or I don't agree and view myself the same way. I can see how you would. Thank you for the feedback. Would you like to make a repair? Would you like this to be the end of the relationship? Right? Being more frank and more vocal about expectations.
Sounding so transactional.
It sounds transactional, and there's probably a more artful way to do it than how I'm describing it here. Maybe more some more pet names, etc. But I do think the core concept does cut out a lot of the inevitable heartbreak that comes from I knew
Mhm.
this about me from the beginning
Yeah.
and I didn't tell you.
Right.
Oh, it's amazing how many couples I've worked with, typically folks in, 20s and 30s and they're like childbearing
Yeah,
possibilities
yeah,
who have been together for 3 or 4 years and didn't know, wait a minute, I thought we both wanted to have kids, or I thought we both didn't want to have kids, and come to
yes,
discover, or sometimes that just changes.
totally.
Some so
Yeah.
that happens too, but they didn't realize it and had, there is something to those cultures that would say that operate in such a way that if you're dating, it's
Yes.
about marriage.
Yes.
Nothing, you don't date unless you're planning on getting married in the next couple of months,
Yep.
probably.
Yep.
And if you're getting married, it's about having children.
Right.
So it's not like, do you want to have children? It's like, will God give us
And
children?
right.
That's a,
Yeah. When
yeah.
is it happening?
Exactly. Yeah. So there's something to that. I have a pet theory that I have no data, and I don't even know if you could do research on this because there's too many confounding variables.
Yeah.
But my pet theory is that cultures that arrange marriages versus cultures like most mainstream Americans that pick our own, that neither one of those does better necessarily. Because
Mm,
I've worked not that many people in arranged marriages, but a few. I've worked with a few people over the years.
yeah.
What are they doing seeing a couples therapist? They're having problems, but they're also talking about other folks they know who have great marriages. And of course, I've worked with lots of people who pick each other, most of the folks I work with, and they're having problems. But there are also folks, I would put us in that category, who have really good marriages. So, it's interesting how that turns out.
Mhm.
I don't think the issue is whether or not you pick the person. The issue is what you do with that phenomenon. You could be with
Yes.
someone that someone else picked for you, where
Yes.
there's at least some likelihood of some commonality if someone was picked for you.
Right.
Maybe not the personality stuff, but at least the cultural stuff or the basic value expectation stuff is probably lined up pretty well. And then you go from there. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about that?
We did an interview on one of my podcasts with somebody who specializes with couples who are in an arranged marriage, and
Mm,
she grew up in a culture where that was the norm. And the research she shared was that they have the partnerships who are born from arranged marriages are longer in duration, but I think it was mixed results on the subjective satisfaction scales that they
mm,
rated because when you think about arranged marriages, and she was explaining, it's not the typical like dowry, the family, and this and that. It's more often than not, it could be like she was giving the example in like New York culture where like a yenta comes up and is like, oh, you'd be perfect for so and so, and that can kind of count as an arrange. Anyone where other people have a hand in it and it's not you picking for yourself is how we define
Oh,
the
okay. Yeah,
arranged marriage. Yes,
that's one
and
of those confounding variables.
yes,
It's like,
exactly.
okay, that's a pretty broad.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, even looking at the subset between if it was arranged by the typical traditional family arrangement definition
yeah.
or someone else recommended someone to the person, because so many of the other factors like similar socioeconomic status, the in-laws are already getting along. All of the main things people who don't have that already locked in come to couples therapy to fight about: money, sex,
Mhm.
finances, or in-laws, kids, that is all discussed ahead of time and agreed
Mm-hmm.
upon for the most part
Mm-hmm.
before they even meet. And then
Right.
some of them like have to make it work. But if you think about, you're not fighting over the other stuff, a deep companionship develops. It might not be
Mhm.
that fiery, hot, passionate, I want to tear their clothes off all the time. But we also know from other couples that choose each other, that doesn't last either. Like age gets
Yeah.
all of us, medical conditions can affect anyone. So to balance, can I pick someone where it's not just me thinking for myself? Can I get the feedback and input of trusted other family members, friends? It doesn't mean, oh, my parents said I could at 40 date this person or not. But if you have a decently healthy family system and they have your back and your best interest at heart, at least consider their feedback. If they say, I've never seen you happier with this person, if you've been totally honest, or they go, I don't know. I really feel like this might not be the right fit. And again, in a healthy system where they're not doing it selfishly to like enmesh you,
Yeah.
whatever. But most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
your friends and family have a different perspective on how you come across and how you're experienced than your own biased subconscious view of yourself, whether that's I have the lowest self-esteem, no one's ever going to love me, or I'm perfect and amazing, I can do no wrong. Neither of those are entirely true. Like you need someone to check you on those. And that's why arranged marriages typically do last longer because they get all the junk that most couples fight and divorce about out of the way from the
Mhm.
beginning, like the style of dating that I described. Kids. I want kids, you want kids. That means I want to adopt 6 kids from a different country. You want them biologically. We both say we want kids, but did we ever operationally define it? No. So we're going
Yeah.
through our fiance engagement, whatever. Oh my God, then we're gonna have kids. And there's thought bubbles, I imagine. Like I want to be director. And I'm like this like the United Colors of Benetton ad, and it's just like one of us in the hospital room, right? I want to give birth. Is it natural birth? Is it like all of those things do actually need to be agreed upon because that can be a deal breaker. And I'd much
Mhm.
rather find out before we have a lot of shared property, business, and everything else. It's much easier to part ways when maybe all you have is a lease
Yeah.
versus all of these other things and
Oh
children
yeah.
in the mix.
Yeah.
So I do recommend in a loving, fun, sexy way, trying to discuss those deal breakers ahead of time and not going past your deal breakers just because they're hot, they're rich, you're getting close to wanting a kid, biological, like I get that,
Mm-hmm.
but that can't be the driving force to make a decision
Right.
or to bring another life into the world, in my
Sure.
opinion. Yeah.
Mhm.
So how can people get in touch with you?
If they want to after this,
I
lots of
hope they would.
I
I
hope they
think
would.
they would.
I'm most active as a like myself on Instagram. I do use this cool app that puts some of my videos out to other platforms. So if you Google my
Good.
name,
Opus Clip. Do you use Opus Clip?
I used to use Opus Clip.
Ah.
Now I record on Riverside for my
Oh,
podcast, and then
they do it for you. Yeah.
it's called Metricool, and it puts it out to like Pinterest, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So I'm on all the platforms, but as a self, I'm the most active on Instagram. So it's my first and last name at Talia Bombola. And then if you want therapy in the state of California, which is where I'm currently licensed, that's therapywithtalia.com. And then I also do some coaching on the side for people who have like done a ton of therapy. They're just like, I need accountability in this area. Like I know
Mm-hmm.
blueprint. I just need someone to come in and tell me, no, don't date that really hot guy again because he's not good for you. So I do some of the coaching on the side as well, and that's taliabombola.com.
Uh-huh. Well, we will put those links on the notes from this session. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, thank you both for having me.
Our pleasure. Welcome back. We hope you enjoyed that interview with Talia Bombola. I know we certainly enjoyed speaking with her, and sounds like she would be a great couples therapist.
She would be a great couples therapist from her particular perspective of doing it,
Right.
which helps a lot of people. I must say
Yeah.
the Imago stuff. A lot of people love that.
Mm-hmm.
So, what should people do if they want to suggest something, or if they want to be in our program? What should people do, Judy? Help them out.
Help them out. Yes, all those things that Bruce just said, you can go to our website, ctin7.com. That's CT for couples therapy, IN number 7.com.
Couples Therapy in 7 Words is the name of our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you will actually have the chance to sign up for a time to be interviewed if you think you'd be a good guest. And as I so often say, if you think you'd be a good guest, chances are you would be. Mm-hmm. We'll ask you when you fill out the little form asking for a time, we'll ask you, what do you want to talk about? And that's where you'll tell us why you think you'll be a good guest.
And even if you don't want to be a guest, but you have a question that you would like us to answer, you can write to us. You can find all the information at ctin7.com.
And so until next time,
remember, be kind,
don't panic,
and have faith.